Hi there, I hope all is well. Welcome to Pearl, a world where modern day princesses strive for class, sass, and stress. I'm your host, Victoria, and today's episode is how I built my 100K net worth at 23 years old as a woman. Yes, I did do this as ethically, I hope, as possible. And no, my parents did not give me this. I built this, and this has been borderline decades in the making. And so today's episode, I just wanted to talk about a few things on how this came to be, because I want to help women understand and challenge the idea that they are somehow at a disadvantage to men and that they can't achieve financial success in their life on their own without a man. No diss to men, but those are my values, and that's the message I'm trying to promote. So I'm going to talk about exactly what I did to get there. I will recognize the privileges I had growing up and in the process. And I also wanted to talk about my philosophies that allowed me to get there and execute these actions. And then at the end, I want to give some words of encouragement. So how does that sound? So I want to talk about the 6 main things that got me here and some context and background. So first of all, I am lucky enough that I am naturally a very aggressive saver. I say that and I say that because, like I was just saying, this has been kind of decades in the making. Really, my journey started very young, like probably 4 or 5 is when I started saving every penny that was ever given to me. No joke, no exaggeration. Exaggeration. So I saved like crazy. Why do I say this? Because unfortunately, a lot of people were not really saving as a kid, and I actually do believe that that's going to cost you a lot. And so if I can kind of talk to any young person, as young as they can be, just to affirm to them, start saving, start being good with your money and intentional with your money and learning as much as you can about your money as soon as possible, that is going to set you up for success. So by the time I was 5, like I'm saying, I started saving every penny. What does this mean? This means every Christmas gift, every birthday gift that was like money, let's say from grandma or uncles or aunts or whatever, I saved so aggressively, like no joke. And while all my friends spent their money, I remember this, I was like 7 or 8, and like we'd all come back from like winter break, like the Christmas break, and all these kids would be like, oh, like I got like $500 and then I bought my favorite game. I was like, oh, I got $200, but I saved every penny and I never ever purchased anything. And my parents, in fact, at some point were like, aren't you gonna like buy something with all this money? And I was like, no. So the first thing I did was I saved like crazy. No exaggeration, no joke. Every penny was saved. Every lemonade stand, every babysitting gig, every extra pocket change I could find. Like if let's say my parents would like let me, which very rare, would be all like, oh, okay, go treat yourself, let's say to like an ice cream or whatever. They gave me the $5, the cone costs $3 or whatever. So I got the $2 of change. I saved everything. So much so, to put numbers to this, by the time I was 18, I think 25K was my goal. By the time I graduated high school, I was actually 17, now that I think about it. I had 25K in my name. So I saved like crazy. And piggybacking off of that, I also worked like crazy. I started my work journey, I think when I was 12 or 13, starting to babysit. So I babysat my next door neighbor, which honestly, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was 13 and they let me babysit their like 6-month-old, like completely on my own. But I also loved kids and I was good with kids. But that's where it started. I was like, wow, I'm really good at this. It then also turned into me house sitting for people, dog walking, dog sitting, gardening for people. Like while they were away on their vacations, people would hire me just like $20 or something to go water their plants. But I was so entrepreneurial and so focused on making as much money as I could and working as much as I could that I was. And this was on top of balancing school, where I was getting a 4.2 GPA. And so all of this is to say I was so focused on my goal of saving as much money as possible. I had no goal for it at the time. Like I had no purpose. I didn't really know what I was saving up for, but all I knew was I wanted to save as much as possible. So number 1 was that I saved like crazy. Number 2, which a lot of people don't really talk about when talking about personal finances and stuff, is that I was super strategic. Every decision I made in my childhood and in my teens and in my early 20s had a purpose. Even if I didn't exactly know at that time what the purpose was, there was eventually going to be a purpose for it. For example, I saved all this money not really knowing what my end goal was, but at least I knew that I was going to be strategic enough to figure out how to save as much money as possible. So this meant, for example, okay, like 13-year-old me realized, I'm like, if I can start babysitting as young as I can, like as soon as possible, basically, I can start getting really, really good at it. And then I will then hopefully be referred out. I'm going to also start to be strategic on how I can branch out to the neighborhood to promote my services. I will kindly ask parents to refer me to other parents. And I'm going to start cashing in, if you will, with all this babysitting or dog walking or whatever. So I was very strategic. And so that worked. So I think I was babysitting in high school every weekend. Literally, I think every Friday or Saturday night, something like that. Even during the week, I was willing to risk my sleep to, save as much, make as much. So again, I was very strategic with everything. Every single dollar was going to be saved, and every single decision I was going to make in life was going to get me to success. So another way I could think about this is that, like, I was so strategic. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wake up super early in the morning, like 5 a.m., do all my homework, do whatever I need to do academically, so that by the time I'm out of school at 3 p.m. or whatever, I now have 5 free hours to go and work as hard as I can. So I was willing to strategize my time, my resources, even my money if I needed to, so that I could save more. So super strategic with every decision I made. And I'm not even kidding, like every single decision. I remember when I was 9 years old or 8 years old, I was like, the moment I can start taking Spanish classes, I'm going to take it to the 9s. I'm going to take the best, like the highest. I didn't even know like the concept of honors classes. I didn't know any of that, but I'm like, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to take it all the way until I really can't anymore. So I enrolled myself at 9 years old into Spanish so that when I was 10 or 11, I started taking Spanish all the way up until AP Spanish in high school. And I took honors all the way. I was very strategic so that I could get straight A's because I wanted to be bilingual. Why? Because I knew then I could connect with the Latino community here in California. I could possibly help them. I could possibly work for them. I could possibly do business, with people who can't speak English. So everything I did was strategic. Then when I was in college, for example, I started enrolling myself in French classes. So although my mom is originally from France, I actually didn't learn from her because I guess it was too hard for her. Like I was rejecting it as a kid. So in university, in college, I was taking French classes so that I could go to Europe and I could speak French and also connect with people. So here I am with Spanish, French, and English under my belt. So now I can really connect with anybody out there, learn about different cultures, yada, yada, yada. So again, I could build business. I can build connections, networks so that I can grow my little business empire. And again, save as much money. So every single decision in school, out of school, in my family, out of my family, with my friends, without my friends, whatever, had a purpose. And I'm still like this today. Every single thing I do has a purpose. So I was super strategic. Number 3, which for some reason people cannot clock. It like does not register for them. I don't know why. Sometimes it's like talking to a brick wall. People do not live below their means, and that's what I did. I lived way below my means. I think I was saving from like 13 to 18. I was saving like 80 to 90 to 95% of it. So I was saying like I basically was saving everything. But at some point my parents were like, okay, now you're going to have expenses. For example, gas or this or that. So at some point around like 15 or 16, once I got like my license, I did have to start contributing and paying. But I was, again, super strategic that I made sure I would not use extra gas that I didn't have to, so I could save every dollar, save every amount. And another way I was strategic, when I was in high school, I don't even know if I should really share this, but my high school was like a mile away from my home, and less than that mile, like in the middle of there, was actually my new work. I got hired at a school. So basically I had a mile radius between home, school, and work, which was amazing because then I was like, great, I don't literally need to go anywhere. I was just going to ramp up this machine of like going to school during the day, doing all my studies, and then going to work and making as much money as possible, then coming home. So what do I mean by this? I wasn't going to Panda Express. I wasn't going out with my friends to Starbucks. I wasn't going, or if I was, I wouldn't buy anything, or I would be very like limited on how much gas I would spend. Like I would just take it to Panda Express and go back, let's say. I wouldn't go, oh, let's do Panda Express, then in and out, or let's go here or there, whatever. I was very, very strategic on every single resource that I had. And so all of this is to say I lived way below my means. If let's say, and by the way, I was making minimum wage at this school. I know you're probably like, wait, I'm kind of lost with everything. I know. I was working a lot of jobs all throughout my childhood, basically, and all throughout my teens. But all of this is to say I lived way below my means while making minimum wage. I think it was like $11, $12, which in California is like nothing at the time. So I was making very little, but I was at a very happy job and I was just saving and saving. So I think like every 2 weeks or whatever my pay stub was, I think I was making anywhere from like $300 to like $500 because I was also working a lot of hours there. And on top of that, working babysitting and everything else, like weekends, I was maybe house sitting. And so I only spent money on gas and whatever my parents told me I needed to contribute on. And then the rest I saved and I could save. And I was also lucky that I got to live at home. Well, obviously I was in high school, but yeah, so I was very below my means when it came to spending. I didn't believe in like keeping up with the Joneses and keeping up with my friends by buying the coolest MacBook or buying the this or buying the that or shopping, Target. I didn't do any of that. I could see past all that junk, to be completely honest with you. Lived way below my means. I was super cheap. If I did need anything or if I did want to like buy something, it was very frugal. It was only things I needed, not things that I wanted. So it was a lot of, again, like discipline, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of like going against your like instinct to want things, like the shiny thing you want to grab. I was like, no, think of the bigger purpose, the bigger idea here and stick to that. Then 4, and this is kind of also writing off of that, I didn't listen to the noise. The noise was telling me, oh, you need the best this, the highest quality this, you need to buy whatever. I didn't buy into that. What do I mean by this? I'll give you an example. When I was in college, I started helping my girlfriends a lot with their personal finances because I guess I kind of had a knack for it, as I guess you can tell. And so I would kind of sit down with them and we'd lay it all out and I'd see the numbers and, you know, they were so vulnerable and I really trusted that they like shared their numbers with me. And it was like, you know, I got to talk to them and I'm like, oh, okay. So here's the big idea. You're making, I don't know, I'm not going to say the actual numbers, but let's just say, for an example, you're making $5,000 a month working part-time in college and you're spending $4,500. Now, of course, you might have to. I mean, I don't know your living situation and your family's contribution, whatever, but is there any way we could mark that down? Things I was starting to notice, and this is what I'm talking to you guys about. A lot of high expenses on beauty things. Oh, I need the best makeup. I need the best hair products. I need the best creams and whatever. I need to get my hair done. I need my certain subscriptions to like workout things, like classes, like hot yoga or Pilates or something. I need that. Hundreds of dollars of things, by the way. I was like blown away. I was like, whoa, like the amount you could save or put that in some sort of, you know, index fund or so, like, I was like, oh my God, like maybe $800 and they needed the best food, Whole Foods. They needed the best, you know, high quality food. And I'm not necessarily saying go and buy Cheetos and like the worst like Dollar Tree food, you know, like obviously you want to eat healthy, but do you really need to buy the Whole Foods healthy foods? I don't know. They believed in that and that was their value. And so here are my girlfriends, you know, dying on this hill, believing this noise that you need all these things and all this, you know, I'm going to call it junk, sorry to say. And yet who's buying a condo right now? Who actually has savings in their bank account right now? You know, I feel so bad because now these girls came out of college and they're like scrambling in debt. And I'm like, you literally probably could have paid this off with all that hair money, with all the hot yoga money, with all the, you know, extra Whole Foods money. It all adds up. And yet here I am at 23 in escrow for my first condo. And I don't know when a lot of girls my age are going to be able to afford buying their first property, to be completely honest with you. I think the average homeowner or first-time homeowner now in America is in their mid-40s. And so I didn't listen to that noise. I did not listen to, I need the best makeup, I need the best hair, I need the best this, my best that. I'm so lucky because I had a mom who was so frugal. Now my mom is a CFO. Or a controller or something like that. So now, you know, my parents are very successful. When I was growing up, that was not the case, by the way. And so she had to develop very frugal habits in me. So much so, we were basically in a romantic relationship with the Dollar Tree. Like, that was our place. Like, that was our playground. And even then, we were not buying a lot, you know. But my mom was buying shampoos from the Dollar Tree, her makeup at the Dollar Tree. when I was a kid, it was very embarrassing, but now I'm like, go Dollar Tree. Like, we are the biggest fans of the Dollar Tree. Even today, like, my dad now is an appraiser and a real estate broker. So my parents are doing very well now. But when I was a kid, that was not the case. So all of that is to say, we followed the frugal lifestyle. We didn't listen to the American noise. And what's funny is most Americans don't realize this. Only in American culture are people willing to justify like crazy buying the most expensive stuff. If you go to Europe, they're so conservative and good with their money, it's insane. They don't buy into that junk. But unfortunately, a lot of my girlfriends are like true Americans and true American, like all American girls. And they're kind of in that system and in that world of believing that they need to get the best and most and all this. And I'm like, but can you afford it? Like, point blank period. Can you afford it? Or are you not living below your means? Are you willing to just like paycheck in, paycheck out and not build any wealth? I wasn't willing to do that. I had a bigger plan, a bigger purpose, a bigger strategy, a bigger goal. So I didn't listen to any of the noise. So even to this day, I'm buying my makeup at the Dollar Tree. No joke. My eyeliner, actually I do invest in nice mascara, but I don't buy foundation anymore. I literally don't have anything. I just do eyeliner, makeup, and maybe some like cheap lipstick from the Dollar Tree, like for blush and lipstick. And that's it. And I've been good. So, all of that is to say, the world is going to tell you, on the internet's going to tell you, commercialization's going to tell you, you need the best, brightest, shiniest toys. And don't buy into that because, again, while all my girlfriends believed in those values of buying the nicest things in college or whatever, they're all scrambling and probably going to be living at home for a bit. Whereas here I am able to buy my first condo. So, and this is not to brag, by the way. This is to show the discrepancy between the mindsets. It's all a mindset at the end of the day. And I was able to, luckily, develop my mindset and finally see through the junk that was the American lie of, capitalism. And don't get me wrong, I'm a capitalist at heart. I own a business. I love capitalism, but it only benefits you and you can be benefited from it if you actually don't buy into it, which is the funny, like, paradox of it. But anyway, I'm getting into philosophy world. So that was that. Number 5, I was extremely aggressive in becoming successful. Like, there was no way out. I'm not even kidding. Like, there was no other way. And I don't know if that's because both my parents are immigrants. And I've heard that, like, the first child of immigrant people tend to be more like that, like extremely aggressive and almost like this desperate sense of I need to be successful. I don't know. Probably. I don't want to discount that. But all of that is to say, I was extremely aggressive in becoming successful. I was super focused in school at a very young age. I remember like I needed to get the grades, like boom, 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 I was willing to do anything. Ethically, of course, as ethically as I could. So, I was willing to do anything to make my dreams and make my goals come true. What does this mean? I'll give you an example. So I have huge goals, and throughout college, I was a beast in college when it came to my work ethic. It was insane. While most 20-year-olds, and again, this is not to brag, this is to show you what it took to get here. While most 20-year-olds are like partying it up and kind of just floating and being students full-time for 4 years, I was like, that's such a waste of potential in terms of income. I was working all throughout college. High earning, by the way, because I was so strategic. I don't know if I'm going to exactly tell you how I got there, but I'll just trust that like I was very comfortable bringing in good money all throughout college through my side gigs and stuff. So while most kids were living it up, partying, I was so strategic. I said, I'm not going to a 4-year university. Why the heck would I go to a 4-year university where I'm going to acquire like $100K in debt? No, I'm going to do whatever it takes to live at home for as long as possible and hopefully go to a university that's close by so that I could either commute or just commute. Like that was basically the plan. And I was willing to do whatever it took. That's the thing. And that's actually my 6th point. But so I was willing to do whatever it took. So while all my friends, again, were listening to the noise, go to the 4-year, go acquire $500,000 or $5 million of debt, it felt, I was like, fine, I'll go to community college. By the way, I was a 4.2 GPA in high school, took all these APs, all these honors, whatever. But again, I didn't buy into I don't want to say the curse word, but I didn't buy into it. I didn't buy into the noise that I need to go to the 4-year. I said, okay, Victoria, swallow your pride, be super strategic. You want to be successful in life and you don't want debt. So I went to community college. Honestly, my parents were also in influence. They were like, Victoria, we're not paying for your college. It was also COVID. I graduated 2020 from high school, and my parents were like, no, we're not going to pay for a 4-year university experience if you're just going to be on Zoom. And they said you can, but good luck, and kind of it's on your own. So I was like, fine, I'll suck it up. I'll go to community college. Went to community college, transferred to UC Berkeley. Bam. That was also my dream school, and I was going to do whatever it took to get there. So all of that is to say, I was so aggressive. So all throughout college, community college, where people can believe I'm a bum and like kind of a loser or whatever, I was waking up at 5 a.m. doing my calculus homework, going like crazy, boom, 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 boom. Then 6 a.m. going to the first house I need to garden or whatever. Then I went to class. Then I came out, tutor, all these kids. Then babysit in the evening, repeat, rinse, recycle. And then I would make my money. Then I would make my grades. And I was building my resume to apply into my applications for the UC system because I was like, I'm getting into UC Berkeley. So again, I was so aggressive. Nothing was going to get in my way. Not my parents, not my family, not my friends, not society, nobody. I was laser focused on my vision and my goals. And my goal was, I'm going to go to UC Berkeley, but not at the cost of me not making money. So all throughout my community college time, I was making money. The summers I was nannying like crazy, working heavy hours, back-to-back families. Like, it was insane. I literally was a beast. And again, not to brag, but just to share what it took, because it is very hard to build a net worth of 100K at 23 years old. Like, it's nothing. Like, there's no get rich quick scheme. It takes a lot of discipline. So, and on top of that, I was trying to maintain a healthy body and a good lifestyle. So I was running, I was swimming, I was going, trying to do it all. And then I was also commuting, so it was crazy. And then on top of that, I'm like balancing like 4 math classes, like calculus, discrete mathematics, differential equations, calculus 3, all the calcs, all the calcs. So I was extremely aggressive in becoming successful. Nobody was going to stop me. Nobody was going to get in my way. Okay. And then number 6, like I kind of said, I was willing to do anything to get to where I wanted to go. Anything, ethically, of course. So what that means is I was willing to sacrifice sleep. This is a crazy one. The next one I'm going to say, and I think a lot of my girlfriends, this is one of the things they just they were not willing to do. But again, I was, because I was so laser focused on my goals, was I was even willing to like limit my food intake because that meant that I would be spending less money. So I wouldn't overeat so I could save money. I wouldn't use more gas than I needed to. I wouldn't spend more time with my friends than I needed to, and, again, waste money, while all my girlfriends wanted to go out and buy this and the nice drinks and the nice dinners and stuff. I'm like, sorry, I can't. I'll be babysitting. I'll be making money. So of course I was hanging out with friends, but I'm so thankful that I had the best and most amazing friends that would not be offended and wouldn't judge me for that, because they knew how focused I was, and they were actually like, some of them were on the same page and they were trying to do their hustle as well. So like, it was okay that like we would literally like find the middle point between our houses, just sit in the car and chat, because like that was the cheapest thing we could do. Again, I was willing to do whatever it took in any way in all areas of my life so that I could reach my goals. Okay. So I was extremely aggressive and I was willing to do anything it took to do this. Okay. So where did that come from though? So I just want to say, at least the willing to do anythingness came from this book that I read when I think I was 19. That's when 17 to 19 was when I really started to become aggressive on how I could build my wealth. From like 13, or technically childhood, until 18, I was just saving. But then by 18, I opened up all my investment accounts to see how I could actually have my money work for me. So that's been great. Anywho, so where did I learn this? So I was reading a bunch of books, doing all this research, all this whatever. And I read this book called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by like Harvey T, something like that. I don't know. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind though. And it literally breaks down the psychology and like rewires your brain to understand how successful people think. And I think that's probably why I talk so intensely now about success as well, is because I'm like, that book was amazing. Of course, I read a lot of other books, but that one I'll never forget. And nobody talks about that. Like, I don't see that in the realm of like self-help and improvement. For some reason, that book is like omitted, but that one changed my life. So, and it was an easy read. It was like basic, like a 5th grader could read it, and broke it down super well. Highly recommend. All of that is to say, he said this one thing like in the book that like transformed my brain. He said, People who become successful were willing to do whatever it took. And that broke my brain more recently because I was like, whoa, that's so true. While some girlfriends of mine were judging me because I was not buying the Whole Foods and I was just the Whole Foods foods and the, Air One or whatever type of stuff, high quality, not doing my hair, willing to sacrifice having like maybe not as nice of a look, although I think I probably looked nicely, but they wanted the like extremely luxurious experience, the nails, the hair, the this, the that, the nice clothes, the nice bag, whatever, and then be broke at the end of the day, some of them. I was willing to not do that. And I was willing to swallow my pride for a little bit so that eventually one day I would be able to live a little more comfortably. And so this book told me, so I was looking back and I was like, wow, I was willing to do whatever it took to become successful. I was willing to swallow my pride and swallow my insecurities that would maybe pump me to feel the need to do all these extra things, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. So anywho, I was willing to do anything it took, ethically, of course. I was willing to sacrifice a little bit more sleep, maybe food, maybe, quality of life. I would have been willing to live like a frat boy if I needed to, to achieve my goals. Okay. So those were mainly the 6 things. I could probably go on and all the things I did, but those are the main 6 categories that all my actions and everything kind of can be categorized in. Okay. I will recognize my privileges though now. Because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, okay, but you're some white rich girl from background and stuff. Okay. My parents, yes, are very successful now. But that hit when I think I was in my 20s. And even then, my parents were not necessarily affording my lifestyle. I was affording my lifestyle. I was affording everything basically that I wanted. Any extra fluff I had to pay for. My parents weren't paying for nails, any beauty, nothing. I had to figure all that out. What they did give me though was a roof over my head and they allowed me to stay home. They fed me. They took care of the basic needs. So I will recognize that is such a privilege. I was able to live home and for a while not pay rent and all that kind of stuff while I was in school because I don't know, they were just super, but it was honestly conditional though. They were like, okay, you can stay home and you can do that as long as you do well in school. And as long as, you pay for your own things. For example, my gym membership, once I got a gym membership, that was on me. And I actually did invest in a nice gym membership. That was one of my little luxuries. My nails, this is at the time when I started to be able to afford these things and not break the bank. And I still was saving at an 80% rate. I was doing my nails, all these kinds of extra fluff things I had to start affording. And yeah, so I had parents that supported me in the sense that they took care of my basic needs throughout schooling. But then once I got out of school, there were expenses and I had to start taking care of things. But anywho, I'm recognizing my privileges. So I had that. I'm sure some people don't have that privilege of being able to live home and have their needs, their basic needs be taken care of while they go and grind and slowly build their little world, their little empire. Another privilege that I know is actually huge, and I will recognize this, is that I had 2 loving, supportive, happily married parents. I did come from a pretty picture-perfect childhood. Although we were not well off when I was a kid, and it was very tight, and I remember feeling a lot of financial stress, even though I didn't really understand that as a kid, I remember subliminally picking that up. I had 2 loving, supportive, happily married parents. So again, while they weren't buying us all the things that all my friends were getting from their parents, we were getting love, we were getting joy, we were getting happy moments and memories with our parents. I remember my mom was shopping at Ross for us as kids. Again, the Dollar Tree was our back door, basically, backyard. They didn't buy us the nicest school supplies, the coolest gadgets and stuff. I remember my mom saying no a lot. Oh my gosh, I think if I could go back and say, what was the one word you heard most as a kid? It was probably no, but it was good. It was really, really good because if I wanted something and she wouldn't get it to me, I then was inspired to figure out how can I get it? And I think that's where I got my entrepreneurial spirit and my super aggressive, successful spirit. So, I had that. I'm so blessed that I had parents that were just amazing to my brother and me. Again, picture perfect, not because we had all the riches in the world, but we had all the riches in the sense that we were a happy-go-lucky family and my parents took such good care of us and they were so affectionate and loving and supportive. And my mom from the beginning told me I could do whatever I wanted in life. I could achieve anything. I could shoot for the stars if I wanted, and I would land. And having, I think, a woman role model believe in you first before you can even understand the concept of believing in yourself, it just made all the difference. And I think it just inspired this confidence in myself that I could do anything. And now I'm really living that out. So I'm very lucky I had a very stable, loving household. And then lastly, I had an amazing school system. I'm actually the product of the public school system through and through, from kindergarten to the end of college. You know, I went through public school all throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, and then went to community college, and then went to UC Berkeley, which is a public school, the number one public school in the world. But I had an amazing school system. I don't know if everybody can say that. Although I'm pretty sure, you know, people say like, oh, the school system's bad. I'm like, no, it's not that the school system's bad. It's that students are bad. I remember being in school and all these kids were complaining like, oh my God, our school system's so bad. I'm like, are you even applying yourself in school? You and I are getting the same education, and yet I'm skyrocketing here and I'm going to take this and go with it, whereas you kind of take it for granted. So I think that's all a mindset, honestly. I don't necessarily think I got the best education, like maybe I could have gone to private school, but I had really good education. And I think probably most American kids do. It's just their outlook on the school system is probably indicative of where they're going to go in life. So I loved school. I respected my teachers like crazy. I took in everything. I absorbed it. I knew it was a privilege from a very young age to have such a good education through the lens of like looking at the world. You know, I know people all over the world would kill for the kind of education that I got, even though spoiled, should I say, kids today don't see what they have in front of them. So I did have an amazing education. So those are my privileges. You know, I had the foundation. I really did. And I'm very thankful for that. But I also didn't take my little foundation for granted. So I wanted to skyrocket with them. Okay, now philosophies. I want to also talk about some philosophies that got me here. I believed in myself. I believed in myself. Even though I didn't believe in necessarily like my societal self-worth, like I knew I wasn't the hottest, like the coolest, like whatever. I knew I was the most hardworking. I knew I was the most serious. I knew I was the most strategic and focused and disciplined. And I believed in everything I dreamed of. And I'm really thankful, I think, because I had wonderful role models as a kid. I had Elle Woods. Elle Woods was my role model growing up. Barbie was my role model. She's an amazing role model for girls. I love Barbie, teaching me that I could do and be anything that I wanted. So I believed in myself. Second thing, I never ever believed I was a victim as a woman, or like I was at some sort of disadvantage as a woman. I never thought men were above me. I never thought that they were more privileged or like they had like a more granted life in some way. I was thinking, no, like I didn't even think of that. Like gender didn't even come into the picture really. So I say that for the title because I think a lot of women think like, wow, like, you know, to achieve the things you achieve, Victoria, is so hard, especially as a woman. I never really thought of that. I never really saw myself as like a woman necessarily. You know what I mean? Like in the sense that implied something negative. I didn't. So I never believed I was a victim. I never believed I was at a disadvantage. And now you might be like, a lot of people could be like, well, you're a white woman. No, I'm not. Like, of course, maybe presenting I am, but no, I'm technically more Latina than I am anything else. My dad's originally from Brazil, so I'm half Brazilian. My mom's originally from France, so you could say that, you know, half and half, but I'm not. My mom's mom is originally from Turkey. So I have a quarter Middle Eastern, I guess you could say, or like Southeast Asian, I guess, if you want. Actually, yeah, how do they say that? Turkey? I know it's some sort of Asian, but hi, I'm now in editing, and I can't believe I was saying Southeast Asian. I meant to say Southwest Asian, and in my head I was literally saying West, but then it was coming out East, and even as I was saying it I was like, something's wrong. So I meant Southwest Asian, of course. But anywho, back to the episode. You could say I'm a quarter Middle Eastern, I'm a quarter French, and I'm 50% Brazilian. And honestly, the culture that I was raised in more was the Brazilian culture. So I don't buy into that. Technically I could have sought myself out to be a victim and like at a disadvantage for all sorts of reasons, but I just didn't. Why? Because I saw that America was the place for anybody to be able to succeed. You just need to take whatever little or a lot you were given and go with it. And that's what I did. Again, growing up, I remember feeling very scarce. I remember scarcity. I remember a lot of stress and fear with money because my parents were having a really tough time in the 2008 crisis. But I was like, I'm not going to let this define me, and I'm not going to be in that situation, and I'm going to build myself up so that one day I can take care of my parents, and that's what I'm doing. So I always believed in myself. I never thought I was a victim for being a woman or for being the child of immigrants or whatever else other card I could pull. I thought, I'm capable, I'm an American, and this isn't like some propaganda, like conservative like view. It's like super true. I'm like seeing my family. My dad's originally from Brazil, like I said. My mom's originally from France. My uncles are originally from Brazil. My dad's brothers, but they all married a different nationality. One uncle married a Mexican lady, a woman from Mexico. The other married an Argentinian lady from Argentina. So my family had always been a melting pot, right? Like basically every continent has been hit in my family. And I was like, and yet here we all are in America. Here we all are trying to make it in America, and we all can. And what's funny is even some people in my family like kind of believe in the victim mindset. And I'm like, wow, like it's funny because we're the same technically, but you believe you're a victim and I don't. So I never believed I was a victim. In fact, I thought I was at an advantage for being an American. I'm like, that's the greatest privilege on earth, like to be an American. Are you kidding? To live in this land where you can do whatever you want and you can become whomever you want and you don't owe anybody anything. It's wonderful. I don't know. Maybe those are just values my parents kind of subconsciously implanted in my brother and me. But yeah, so now I just want to say some words of encouragement. If you are a woman and you are having trouble like even fathoming this, like how I did this, my question is, what is different between you and me? And I really don't want to hear the excuses of like, oh, but my background, that's what I'm saying. I don't buy into that. I really don't believe that because you come from a certain background, you're at a disadvantage. I mean, sure, it can, but then it's up to you to break free from that and for you to overcome that, Because again, I could pull the same card, but I didn't believe in that. I didn't believe that I was ever at a disadvantage, even though I guess I could have. So all of that is to say, you can do it too. There's nothing stopping you. Even if you're not American, I'm sure if you're European or, other parts of South America or whatever other place you could be from, I really don't believe that. Oh, the laundry. My mom's doing laundry. I really don't believe that you're at a disadvantage if you don't let yourself believe you're at a disadvantage. So believe in yourself because, you've got a brain. You've got hopefully all the parts needed to become successful. And even then, I don't even believe that you're at a disadvantage. You can do anything. Your brain is so powerful, you can do anything. And I really believe if you have access to the internet or a library or both, there's no excuse for you to not achieve your goals. Because how come I was researching all these things on the internet? I was researching about the stock market and trying to understand how investing works and how to build my portfolio and all that kind of stuff. Nobody was encouraging me. I didn't have parents like bringing me to the library and educating me on those kinds of things. I applied myself. I was going to the library during COVID and any extra minute I could get to try and get my hands on some reading to learn more. I was the one who commuting every single day back and forth from college. I was listening to these podcasts, to these audiobooks, to these self-help books to try and better myself. So you're not at a disadvantage, okay? Or at least don't accept that you are. Even if you objectively are, why would you accept defeat? Genuinely, especially if you're a young woman. Like, are you kidding? Like, why would you do that? And I just see that everywhere now, especially my generation. Like, people just making excuses, accepting defeat. It's all this psychological, like, warfare, basically. And I'm like, what if you just stepped out of that and actually believed in yourself? What if you believed that you could be successful? What would you do? So I don't know. Those are just some words of encouragement. I want you to believe in yourself, especially as a woman. You can do it. In 2030, the majority of wealth will be held by women in the United States. So where exactly is this like victim mindset or believing that you are less than or less privileged than men? I think it's completely out the window now. So go after it, get it done, go achieve your goals. And if you want help on like figuring out how to, even start, I'd be happy to do an episode on helping anybody who wants to start from the beginning, level 1 from the ground up. I would happily do an episode on that. So just let me know. But all right, I know that this was a long one. Thank you so much for listening. If you did, I hope that these words of encouragement helped Hope that maybe my story might have helped you and inspired you. I'm just some nobody California girl who came from two parents who aren't even originally from here and just had a dream. And here I'm going. And this is just the beginning. And I'd love to take you along for the journey. So if you like this episode and you want more, please let me know. Thank you again so much for listening if you did. I hope you're having a blessed day. I'm praying for you. God bless.